we'll kickstart our webinar. Uh, First of all, again, welcome. We welcome all of you on behalf of the Association for Measurement and Evaluation of Communication. This is the Asia Pacific chapter which is organizing this webinar. And throughout this webinar, we encourage you to ask questions to our speakers. We have very good speakers who are experts in this area, and please ask questions by using the questions box on the right hand side. You can leave your question over there, and after the speaker has finished their presentation, we will ask that question to our speaker. In the Asia Pacific chapter, we have Kali Sakas from Australia, who is our chair for the APAC chapter. And my name is Asim Sood. I'm the vice chair working out of India. Today we have two very renowned experts who will be talking to us about how to write killer award-winning entries. First, we have Marion McDonald, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Ogilvy Public Relations. And then we have Professor Jim McNamara from Australia. He's the chair of judges at the AMEC Awards. He's a professor of public communication at University of Technology, Sydney, and he's also a visiting professor at London School of Economics. Marion and Jim, welcome to both of you from all of us here. Before we start the presentations, I would like you to look at your screens, wherein we have some details about the awards that are coming up. Every year we have AMEC Awards, wherein we give awards to the best measurement case studies that we come across. There are several categories that you can look at. There are in-house teams, there is a category for government, non-profits, and even measurement firms. And we have an early bird deadline, which is 8th of February, and then we have the final deadline for all the entries, which is 24th of February. We encourage you all to participate and send in your entries. Also, we would like to tell you about our upcoming Global Summit on Measurement. The first time we are doing our summit in Asia, this will be in Bangkok on the 17th and 18th of May. We invite all of you to join. Please look up our website and look at the awesome content that we will have at this summit. Not just content, there'll be very good networking opportunities, so we welcome all of you. With that, I'm going to pass on the controls to my colleague Marianne, who's going to talk to us about how to write a award-winning entry. She has won several awards. She has been on the jury as well, and she'll talk to us about writing award-winning entries.
Great, thank you, Asim, and hello everyone. It's great to see you today. Thank you for joining the webinar, and I trust this proves very helpful. I feel like it's McAMEC today with Marion McDonald and Jim McNamara jointly presenting here. So welcome to the McAMEC webinar on how to write killer AMEC entries. But the principles we're going to share today really apply to any of the award shows, not purely AMEC. So I trust you'll find them very useful for any award cases that you package up your great work in. It's not too painful a process, shouldn't hurt too much, but it doesn't hurt if you start early and you have good preparation for the process. So I'm going to share today 3 golden rules for success in these awards, and I've watched over the last couple of years the first one become even more important. That is solving a real business problem. Increasingly, the cases that win in the AMEC and other awards are very directed to a business problem versus a communications problem. They secondly then provide very clear evidence of business results and business impact as a result. And we all like a bit of entertainment, of course, as we read through these cases. They make very effective use of storytelling to help judges understand the difficulty involved in achieving this business result and what were some of the challenges along the way that helped you create such a successful case. So these are my 3 golden rules. And I'm going to go through these and illustrate with one case study, past winning award entry. So conversely, 3 mistakes we make is firstly to only describe some image or awareness problem on a case instead of diving into the business problem. The second is not building a clear path from the work that was done in the campaign or the measurement of it through to those business results. So how did the measurement help the company achieve better business results? We need to illustrate that path through that the work that we did something that somehow improved productivity for the organization or financial results. And the final one is, of course, around timing, but luckily you're on this webinar and you won't have that issue because you'll have all the tips several weeks ahead of when awards actually close. So I'm going to go back to my first issue now, and that is the business problem. Effie's test and one of the awards we use is one of the highest standards, and they really focus on how you solve a business problem and not a communications issue. And business problems therefore use words like sales, revenue, volume increase, market share, reputation in some cases where it's not a pure business metric. So that's what we're looking for as we express the problem or the challenge that we're solving. And I'm going to show you, these are some AMEC examples we've used in past AMEC seminars. The first of those is on the left, we illustrate the business problem. On the right, the communications task. So the first one on the right, this actually came in an entry that the challenge was to activate the bleach dialogue online through sharing usage tips. Well, that's a very nice communications challenge, although I wouldn't rivet too many end users. The actually, as you delve further in and ask more questions about why we're doing this work, is to grow our sales very significantly, a 33% sales growth, by persuading current bleach users to increase their usage occasions. So to find more ways to use bleach around their home in order to grow their annual volume per user from 1.5 to 2 litres and give us that 33% growth. So there's an example of a really honed down business problem, a real step up from the communications task as described. And the second example around the contact lens category, while the communications task was described as creating awareness about astigmatism amongst women in an entertaining way, although I'm not quite sure how astigmatism can be entertaining other than the mistakes you make if you can't see clearly. The business problem, as you ask more questions with our client here, is to understand that we're trying to grow sales of contact lenses by 12% by a younger target audience who typically might ignore some visual problems, to start self-diagnosing eye strain and to go and seek professional help that may lead to them getting contact lenses. So shifting from the communications task to a business problem, an underlying business problem. And it comes from asking more questions. Why do you need to create greater awareness? What's happening in the business environment? How much do you need to grow your business as a result of increasing awareness? So the types of business problems that we're solving are what are the business issues that occurred prior to our campaign? For example, do we have usage declining in a category? Or do we have a new competitor coming in and stealing our customers? Do we have new technology coming in? Do we have, for example, accelerating disease awareness? For example, if we're looking at something like diabetes or obesity, do we have increasing disease incidence that means we need to step up communication around it? We need to quantify that and make sure we look at our objective and therefore our result against that business issue. Or it might not be a business issue and negative impact, it might be a positive opportunity. For example, identifying a new or emerging consumer segment and how effectively did we talk to them. Or identifying new product usage opportunities, identifying and taking advantage of them. Increasing societal concerns over an issue. For example, we deal a lot obviously in Asia around air quality, is how can we make sure that we have people more focused on worsening air quality and therefore taking action or wanting to be part of the solution. New product launches. This is one area for entries that I always find the most difficult to quantify. When we say increase sales and it's a new product, it's always going to happen. New sales are always going to go up for a new product. So therefore, we need some kind of comparative benchmark. What are we dealing with? Grow sales faster than their previous launch, have better, more positive word of mouth, leading to more wait lists or increased wait lists or deposits taken for a new product before it's even available. So we need to find some kind of benchmark that makes it relevant, not simply to say we grew sales quickly for a new product. I want to show you an example case study and the objective and the reason why for that objective. So this case, it's an Ogilvy case out of our China office last year, and the objective, the business objective, was to increase the absolute number of Chinese visitors going to the UK, thereby adding revenue to the British economy. Now, in the actual case, there were some hard targets around that by how much they wanted to increase it and by how much they were hoping to increase visitors' spend as well, which are confidential and I can't share them with you today, but that was part of the case study. And then typically, if we'd put in a communication objective, we might have simply said something like increase buzz around, or positive buzz around tourism to the UK in order to attract more people to visit. But the real business issue for us, it was a negative impact in this case. We were losing ground to other countries. We were losing ground to the US, to Australia, which very aggressively markets in China, and some other destinations around Europe as well. And our ranking of the UK as a country that's an attractive and welcoming place to visit had dropped dramatically. And in fact, again, in quantitative research, when we quantified the scale of the problem, we'd identified that the UK had slipped from being, I think, something like number 5 to drop to number 13 as being a friendly and welcoming country for Chinese to visit. So let's move on to the second challenge. The second one is around proving real results. So business results quantified and with sources given as well. So typically, a measure like awareness grew or reputation improved does not earn you a shortlist placed in the AMEC Awards. The second point is we really need to draw a direct path between the campaign elements, how we measure them, and therefore the business results that were achieved as well. I like to structure this. This is a fairly new structure I'm using to train within Ogilvy. We call it the BBC. Think like the BBC. Business, behavioral change, and how the comms worked to achieve that. So what are the financial metrics you achieved, and how did you change people's attitude or behavior in order to drive those business results, and how did the comms get them to change their behavior? And so basically what I've just done is reverse all of that to prove the link. So when I start with the measurement, I look at the measurement of the comms. How did the campaign activities actually drive awareness, desire, drive great earned media, or reputation? As a result of that, how did we change target audience behavior? So what audience did they take? For what action did they take? For example, they signed up for a test drive. They registered for something. They downloaded perhaps a white paper in B2B. They became an advocate for a cause or for a disease state. And that therefore led to some resulting impact on sales or share or perhaps share price, or for example, a reduced road toll if it's around driver safety or drink driving. It's a case study we worked on over the last couple of years. So think of that BBC and then reverse it. What did the comms do, the measurement of the comms, to change behavior to build a business result? BBC, business, behavioral, and comms. I'm going to go back to my example now, the Great Chinese Names for Great Britain case study. And look at how we implement. So the comms. You'll notice in here I haven't led with things like video views or number of followers or fans. While we did collect that data, it wasn't our key indicator for this campaign. The vanity metrics are not nice to have, but they weren't the key driver, particularly in China where any campaign is going to hit millions of fans, millions of video views. You're talking a number that becomes just how many millions can cases compete on. What was important for us when we did post-testing was the campaign recall. And the campaign recall for this campaign was one of the highest that Visit Britain had ever seen post-campaign evaluation report. So in fact, a 99% recall level of this particular campaign. So we know that comms worked, because people recalled the campaign, had obviously had some interaction with it, or perhaps talked about it or shared the campaign themselves. Then we looked at what behavior change did it trigger in people who had seen the campaign, recalled the campaign. So again, we did some brand tracker research here, 2 waves of it last year, to understand how it was changing behavior. So in this case, you can see that a majority of people agreed that the imagery they had seen in the campaign of the UK inspired them to want to visit a specific location in the UK. And in particular, one of our objectives of this was typically most mainland Chinese impression of visiting the UK meant London and not many other places. So one of our secondary objectives was to create interest in visiting a place outside of London, for them to travel further, spend more time and therefore money in the UK to increase tourism revenue. So again, one of our measures here was that almost half of people who saw the campaign had become more interested to visit places outside of London. And then finally, back to our business impact as a result. Again, we use statistics from the UK Office for National Statistics here, was that Chinese visitors to Britain in the first quarter, which was the quarter immediately after the campaign, were up 20% year on year over the previous year. So we need to compare a like period. And the tourist spending leapt 30% to £75 million as measured in these statistics. So I'm sharing this number with you, but not a lot more behind it. So we even had things down to average tourist spend per visitor as well, which we tracked. What we were also trying to challenge, and this is in part of building our path to prove the results, was could a campaign that happens in the last quarter of one year really impact travel so suddenly in the next quarter? So actually what we did in our behavioural study was to understand, had people already made inquiries or booked a trip? Had they previously been planning a trip anyway, and had this just encouraged to bring it forward? So again, some of the measures that we included in our behavioural impact measurement were things like, were you previously planning a trip to the UK prior to seeing this campaign? And then we'd also determined that many people had already, even by the point we were surveying them, already gone on their trip to the UK, and ascertained that a certain percentage of those people who then took action and went on the trip had not even been previously planning to visit the UK, but had subsequently done so as a result of this campaign, or as they reported as a result of this campaign. Now, to get to that kind of business case, you really need to do a lot of work up front with the clients. So my big tip, and I talked earlier about my third tip, was to start nice and early and allow plenty of time to do this. Of course, in many cases, we may need to elevate the client point of contact that we get this data from. If we are dealing with a comms manager, they may not in some cases be as close to the business result. So we may need to ladder up perhaps to a CMO, a CCO, or even potentially to a sales director or CEO of a client to be able to get access to the business goals behind it. And part of doing that is to motivate the most senior client possible to actually care about the results. Many of you on the line may be clients yourselves today. One of the things we check in with is, how useful to this organization is an award? What will recognition for effective work mean? Does it mean they're able to increase their own budgets for future marketing? Does it make them a more attractive place to work, which can help them increase talent attraction of the organization, help them to hire more people who want to work for an organization that has very effective marketing? And then the last point of this really is reassuring clients on confidential measures. Clients, of course, have right of veto on the entry. We label data not for publication. I deliberately used that in the Visit Britain example to highlight that we had included some data that was labeled not for publication. Sometimes we're unable to get actual numbers, or clients are unwilling to share that. In that case, we might use an index. So we might not use an actual sales number. Of course, we might stay and said that sales index was 110 compared to prior year. So we're not giving an actual sales number. We might say sales grew 10% ahead of the new product launch forecast, where it's a new product goal. And coming back to my earlier point about launching new products, of course sales are going to be up. There's very little point in a case that says we launched the new product, and as a result of the campaign, sales grew 4,000%. Well, of course they did, because sales were probably very small before the campaign began. Here's where it's more important, say, to reference against a target or a forecast for the campaign and show some examples of that. On to my third point, again, about telling the story around it. Try to imagine for a moment that you're an awards judge, as I've been, as most people on this panel today have been. You're given sometimes up to 30 cases to evaluate. As part of doing that, you're typically doing it outside of your day job. So I set myself a task in the evenings. I will sit down generally after my partner has gone to bed. It's nice and quiet in the house, and I can focus on reading the cases and really appreciate them. By the time I've read 10 or 15 of them, it's not quite so exciting and interesting anymore. So I look for a really well-written case that has a great story around helping me understand what's at stake in this case, what's the drama, why should I care about this particular case, and the results that you managed to achieve in here. So I need some kind of sense of the degree of difficulty in this category. I need some kind of sense of how innovation in your work and your measurement approach really helped to solve the issue and drove a result as well. So make sure as we write the paper, we really paint a sense of that, how difficult it was to get there. Remember that the judges, clever as we are, old as we may look, really don't know every category and therefore don't understand always the metrics in that category and how difficult something can be to achieve. To that end, I've got some quick tips to share with you. So I mentioned we're not an expert in every category or currency too, by the way. One big tip is make sure that you're providing currency in a nice, simple to understand currency format and not local currency, particularly if your local currency is not euros or US dollars or pounds. Okay, judges are from around the world, and we're judging cases from around the world. So if you give me an example in Indian rupees or Indonesian rupiah or Myanmar chat, I simply don't have the time for every case to whip open my currency converter app and understand what that means in terms of both your budget or the financial impact of your case. So do make sure that you're using a nice easy budget comparison. I'd also like to understand if you drove something like a 1% market share growth, on the surface of the sound very dramatic. But if you're competing, I know well, in the skincare or shampoo categories, a 1% market share increase can be worth hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars. So make sure they understand the size and the scale and the challenge of the category as well. So moving on to my next tip is, again, I mentioned the time pressure that we're under. The time pressure means that we need a nice, quick, relaxing read. Don't overdo the length of the case. Keep it nice and brief. And I know Jim will speak about this shortly. Headline key elements of your story. So try to pull out sections, quotes, facts that can make it nice and easy to help judges understand what they're reading and work through the flow of the case. And I'd also like to emphasize that when you've read more than 10 or 12 cases, you start to read words like breakthrough, innovative, never seen before, viral this, broke the internet that, many times. And they start to wear thin very quickly. You're far better off being disarmingly honest with judges.
Request Jim to step in and start presenting. So as I already shared earlier, Jim is currently the chair of judges at the AMEC Awards. He is also the professor of public communication at University of Technology, Sydney, and he's a visiting professor at London School of Economics. Jim, within a minute, I'm going to pass on the control to you, and we'll request you to tell us some tips.
So, hello all. Excuse my croaky voice because I'm recovering from a virus. My screen should be now showing. Is that right, Asim?
Yes, we can see you.
So I'll move quickly through. In my case, I've got 10 tips that I hope might be useful to some of you, and I'll move through these fairly quickly. I guess the first thing just to tempt you and show how important this is ask you this question: would you like to win 3 of these in 1 year? Because I guess being boastful, but I did last year. I won 3 AMEC awards, a platinum and 2 gold, and I can tell you it is very, very rewarding. It is very, very satisfying and very important. So these are well worth trying for. Tip 1, and I'm going to start with some basic tips and then to move into some more advanced ones. Tip 1, the awards, you will have a template for the entries in most years, and check the details of this for 2017, but usually it's a 4-page entry, and also you can do up to 4 pages supporting materials. If it says a 4-page entry, don't write 5 pages or 6 pages. Make sure, though, you fill out all the sections and keep to the word length. But when you keep to the word length, don't write it in 8-point, because the judges, as Marion mentioned, are very, very busy and they have got a lot of entries to read. So at a very basic level, follow the templates. AMEC Online will provide you with details of what they want in the entry, how you should set it out, and follow that. Very practical thing. Another very practical thing is you need to align your entry to a category, and this will help you win or not win an award. If, for example, there's a category called Best Use of an Evaluation Framework, if you're entering that category, you really must be sure that you've got a specific framework that you applied in your evaluation, and you'll need to nominate that. Or if you're entering under marketing, then you're going to have to show brand results or sales results. So that will help you. You may have an excellent campaign, but if you enter it in the wrong category, it may not impress the judges. The judges do have the right to suggest a change of category, but that doesn't always happen. On the other hand, don't try and make your entry sound like all things to all people. By identifying a category, you write your entry for that category and be very specific about you did, for whom and why. As I said, the judges can only award work in a specific category, so you need to fit within that. Getting a bit more specific and much more important. Your campaign or project must have SMART objectives. We talk a lot about SMART objectives in the industry. They mean specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. One of the biggest problems in all evaluation is that even if evaluation is done, the original objectives are not really clear and specific. What do we mean by specific? Well, we mean things like your objective should contain target audiences, target numbers, and dates. Who are you aiming at? What is the target that you want to achieve, and by when? And these are just 2 examples. To increase cancer screening rates among 45 to 60-year-olds by 15% in 2016-17. Now that clearly is a public sector, a health campaign, or if it's a product, it might be to generate 5,000 inquiries about product X by the 30th of June 2017. You need to be very, very specific, and then you can measure against those objectives, because the judges will want proof that you actually achieve what you said you were going to achieve. Also, though, as Marion brought out, I'm talking about very smart communication objectives, but in turn, those communication objectives must align to organizational objectives. So why are you generating 5,000 inquiries? Why are you getting increased cancer screening rates? The overarching objective of the organization might be to reduce cancer rates or to generate sales revenue. Remember, the judges are smart experts. They are all interested in specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound objectives. Tip 4, just as important as having smart objectives is your entry. It can't win an award unless you've generated and demonstrated outcomes and impact. Now, those terms should be familiar to most people, but for example, a lot of awards talk about arranging events. Arranging events is an activity. The point about outcomes and impact is what happened as a result of the activity. The volume of publicity is often quoted, but the volume of publicity is an output. You've got to be able to show, did anyone read the publicity? Did they believe it? Did they take any action as a result of reading it? Even engagement is only an outtake, as we say. It's people taking some form of emotional or cognitive result from the material, but so what? What did it lead to? Outcomes, as Marion was also emphasizing, they are at the minimum increased awareness, but more often they are changed attitudes and in particular action or behavior. There is a real focus on communication leading to some form of action or behavior. And just a very important point, and by the way, if you're not familiar with those terms of outputs and impact or outtakes, all that information is available on the AMEC website. Look up under the AMEC Integrated Evaluation Framework. Just a very important rationale for doing evaluation at that level is something that I point out all the time to practitioners. When we're producing outputs and activities and outputs, such as producing publicity or building websites, the reality is we are a cost center. It's only when we produce outcomes and impact that we become a value-adding center. Evaluation is about value-adding. And so simply to report all the activities we did and all the outputs we produced, we're really only saying how much money we spent. We're a cost center. It's about outcomes and impact. That's a very important point. And then following on from that, as much as you've got to claim outcomes and impact, you've got to produce proof. We must present proof of that. We can't simply present our opinion. And proof will mean that we've got to present in our entries evidence. Evidence such as empirical data, numbers, percentages, ratings, like some of the ones Marion just showed, or it may be qualitative findings, but that will be things like levels of support, levels of advocacy for a product or a brand or a policy. So not only demonstrating outcomes and impact, but presenting proof in good, hard evidence. Remember, the judges are judges, and all judges look at the evidence. Tip 6, following on from that evidence must come from valid, reliable methods. Ideally, social science research. So increasingly, that evidence to be reliable, to prove our outcomes, should be based on surveys, structured interviews with our target audiences, focus groups, rigorous content analysis, sometimes databases. It may be databases such as those recording sales figures. Somehow my machine just went to another. I think I'm back. Databases such as sales figures or records of inquiries, very, very important to do that. There's no place for AVEs, advertising of value, equivalence, or opinion, or black boxes. The AMEC stage, as Marion was saying, is no place for BS, and it's no place for snake oil merchants, people who sell something that is not really a valid solution. Tip 7, I've emphasized hard data and evidence, but you also do need to tell your story. So Mary and I are agreeing here. When you come to writing up your case study, you've got to have the evidence, but it's also about the storytelling. The judges have got to be involved in it, understand what you did. So don't give a lot of background and history. Get to the point, make the story come to life. And a very key way to do that is to include visuals. Remember, you'll have an entry, but you can also submit some supporting data. So in the supporting data, you can present visual data. In one of the awards I won last year, I was trying to explain a campaign, and I presented photographs of actual women in a campaign that was designed to address breast screening rates, mammograms. And so what I was able to do was not only give the facts, but I was able to show, and seeing is believing, so the judges could actually see the women marching in the street and the women signing pledges, and they could read quotes from some of these people. So those techniques of narrative and storytelling that communication people are good at are also important, along with hard evidence. Another finally big one as I come towards the end is good evaluation not only provides evidence of what you did in the past, but it provides insights for learning, for improvement, and then for informing future strategy. Really, really top-level evaluation is about looking forward, not just looking back at past performance. We need to be prepared to learn and improve. So you don't necessarily, and probably shouldn't, claim that everything was perfect. a case study or an award entry that claims that it was a perfect campaign isn't really believable. Sometimes things go wrong. What went wrong? What didn't work? How did you fix it? How are you improving and learning for the future? Management finds those insights valuable, and also the judges do. The judges are a lot like CEOs and clients. They'll be thinking about, how does this evaluation help my business or my organization in the future? Tip 9, again a practical one. When you do all of that, with all that great evidence, all those figures and numbers and data and good storytelling, quality check your entry, spell check it, have your colleagues read it over, get peer review. Remember, you're pitching this to an international judging panel. So very, very important, particularly when you're writing this in English, is tailored to an international audience. Remember, quality always stands out. Finally, on a light-hearted note, but dream, hope, and if it helps, pray. Good luck. It's very important to win awards. It can help you in your organization to show the credibility of your work. It can advance your career. So all the very best to you, and I hope to see you at AMEC 2017.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you so much. And I believe Marion is also back now.
So I'm
Marion, are you with us? Thank you.
I should have just handed control back to you, Azeem, yes.
Indeed,
I got it, thank
you. Yes. Hi, can you hear me again?
Yes, Marion, we can hear you. Welcome back.
Great, thank you so much. We mustn't have paid the phone bill in Hong Kong.
And all the participants, our apologies for the technical difficulty, but we will take questions for both Marion and Jim now. As I said earlier, please use the questions box on the right-hand side control panel so that you are able to ask questions for the speakers. And as we wait for the questions, I have the first question for both of you, Jim and Marion. You talked about going visual in the entries. Have you ever seen video entries being sent to you? Did it make a difference to your evaluation of the entry?
I have seen links to videos provided, most definitely, in AMEC Awards in the past, and they help, as Jim said, they help bring it to life. It's not a mandatory for AMEC Awards to have a video case study, as it is for many other awards that we enter, but certainly even links to see an event or see something in progress are helpful.
All right. Jim, have you seen any video entries?
I haven't seen video. Certainly photographs are very important, but there's no reason why videos couldn't be embedded or attached. You do get the template for the entry, but you are allowed to submit supporting data, supporting it up to a certain limit. And I think a video, very short videos, GIFs, short animations, any of those things, because it brings it to life. And as I said, seeing is believing. So someone can be telling me about a campaign in Bangkok or Beijing or Jakarta, but seeing it really helps me. If I can actually see the event happening or little extracts of it, it brings it to life. And we're all very visual people, so I think it's a great tip.
Thank you. And you both talked about how time is so important. You have little time to cover so many case studies. You also said you need context for new businesses, new countries. So how does one get the right balance between how much to share as context, what to add as entries? Or should the entry be separate and there should be a separate appendix which has the context and other information?
My personal view is no, I don't want too many more things I need to read, but to tell it very simply in the story. For example, I remember there was a case, I think it was on the Polish banking environment or economic environment last year in the AMEC Awards, and the case really simply made the point up front about how incredibly complex it was to explain this issue to their target stakeholders by using a really nice analogy, something like that just helps us understand the complexity of a situation we may not be exposed to. I'm not personally very familiar with the Polish banking climate or the economic climate, for example, but using a simple analogy, so it's like this is a great way of helping the judges understand the complexity.
My quick tip there is I'm a big fan of bullet points. don't write long, lengthy paragraphs. You can get across a lot of background and a lot of things quickly by saying, the background is this, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, very short, sharp points. Similarly, when you get into the activities, the main activities were, because judges are very busy, long paragraphs are hard to read, and I find you can get across almost twice as much information in a few pages by using bullet points very diligently. We don't need a long-winded explanation that the economy was in tough times. It just can be GDP growth was less than 1%, full stop. So bullet points are a great way to keep your entries short, but get across a lot of key information.
Thank you. And a tactical question. What is that sweet spot for number of pages that an entry should be in?
Well, the template, 2, Marion says 2. The limit last year was 4. You were allowed 4-page entry and up to 4 pages A4 of supporting material. So that was the maximum. But yeah, if you can do it less than that, absolutely. I mean, I used the 4 pages, but I made it, don't reduce the type font too small, so that, you know, drives judges crazy. I kept it in at least 10-point type font, so it was readable. Nice, clean type font. Don't close up the leading and cram it all in. Space it out. Make it easy to read, make it attractive, and that's where bullet points and a few visuals can help tell the story.
All right. My next question is about confidentiality of these entries. At times, to make an entry powerful, people may want to share some data. What guidelines are followed in terms of those entries being made available to people?
Well, Barry Legator will not post any entries. Winners, well, no entries are posted on the website, only winners. And no winners are posted unless he's got written permission from the organization. So first of all, if you're an employee or an agency, you have to have permission from your client to enter. And then even if you win, the AMEC will contact you and ask for your permission if the entry can be published on the AMEC website. You can, as Marion said, delete some information that's confidential, or you can say it's not to be published. So you have all of those options.
Excellent. So I think confidentiality issue is taken care of, and we've already had some great tips being shared by both Jim and Marion. I'm looking at the questions box, and there's only one question that has come in so far, which is, will you be sharing the presentation deck after the webinar?
I'm certainly happy to.
Yes, yep, no problem.
All right, so Sophia Yang, thank you for your question. We will share the deck after the webinar.
Asim, we will put the link up on the AMEC YouTube channel and make sure that everyone that attended or registered will get that link so that they can view it at any time.
Excellent. So we don't have any more questions now. So I'm going to invite now Kali to step in and thank the speakers and also again tell us about AMEC's activities this year.
Thank you, Asim. I'm going to just use your screen too, so that's fine too. I wanted to extend a very big thank you to Marion and Jim, who have put aside time in a very busy time of year to help the AMEC APAC chapter communicate how to really succeed in this year's AMEC Awards. And your expertise, your advice is just so invaluable to everyone that's come along today, but also everyone that joins the webinar as a recording in the next few weeks and beyond. Thank you very much on behalf of Asim and I for being available. It's wonderful to have such expertise for our members and non-members to come and join along. I wanted to also mention to those people that have come, I know that we've got people from industry organisations such as PRIA on the line. I wanted to just mention that the early bird deadline for the AMEC Awards is the 8th of February. The final entry deadline is the 24th of February, so you still have a lot of time. It's why we wanted to do the webinar this week, so that we got in before Chinese New Year, so that you could get this great advice, get these top tips, and then apply it to your applications and entries. So that, again, the final entry deadline is the 24th of February. Now, the AMEC Awards are presented at the AMEC Summit every year, and I wanted to put out a reminder that the AMEC Summit this year will be held in Asia for the first time. We're very, very proud to welcome everybody to this region, and we have a lot of work cut out for us, the people on this call, to organise a fantastic summit. But the summit will be taking place in Bangkok on May 17 and 18. So just please a reminder that that's coming up. We will be sending you out some materials and some content so that you can see the key speakers that we've got. It's a fantastic networking opportunity. It's a fantastic opportunity every year to get in touch with the best in the business globally every year. So all are welcome. We're hoping that it's going to be a very successful event, and we will be sending out more information as we lock in some great global communication speakers for that. Thanks, Asim.
Thank you, Kali. And we have a late question here from Shubhangi Chaturvedi. Her question is, in the midst of 100+ campaigns that you receive, how does one ensure that a seemingly simple campaign stands out amongst those that have changed the landscape in the category drastically?
If I can jump in first there, if you can hear me, with great storytelling, with really painting the challenge very well up front, as I mentioned before, using terrific storytelling to share something that was innovative about the case. It doesn't need to be a huge scale of case, and it doesn't need to be enormous numbers involved, and it can be from a very small country. What we're looking for is some creativity and innovation that really connects right through to some kind of meaningful business result. And that's how you best stand out with a seemingly small campaign. Small budget work in a small market can easily perform very well if it focuses on those principles.
Yeah, I just endorse Marianne's comments about innovation. Being innovative is always appealing to the judges. Small budget campaigns and non-profit campaigns do win awards quite regularly. The judges are attracted to see someone doing a lot with a little. Just one other further point there too is some of the big campaigns that have massive results, they have problems with what we call causality, and that is showing that the actual communication was what caused the result, because very often there's an active sales force, there's promotions in store, and they have a lot of difficulty in proving that what they did actually did the result, so achieved the result. So very often with small campaigns in a limited scale, it's much easier to show that what you did directly resulted in the outcomes and impact that was achieved. So certainly very specific, very well targeted campaigns in whatever category they're in have a very good chance of winning.
Excellent. Thank you. We don't have any other questions, so we will close this webinar. Thanks again, everyone, and we wish to see all of you at the summit in Bangkok or later this year.
See you in Bangkok.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.